Asia, the new center of the world game. 1 in 2 football fans globally live on this continent. Here, homegrown legends rise and champions are crowned. Proud nations fly their colors and tribes of fans in booming cities unleash their energy. Intense, diverse. Here, local is king. It's a new era of Asian football, a new type of fandom, a new chapter to an historic story.
Hello. Welcome back. Jasmine, CEO Branded. Welcome back to the Sports Masters Academy. For those who don't know, this is a series of virtual events designed to help build a foundation for anyone interested in learning more about the sports business. It's the business of sport taught here by our friends from the sports business. The Academy is produced by, with, and for the Asia Pacific sports business community. It's part of our Learning Matters platform. So we've got the Music Academy. We've also got a Gaming Masters Academy coming up as well. But throughout the series, we'll be covering sports rights, sports marketing, working with brands, live events, data, player management, sports law, the metaverse, and more. So please do hang around for later editions. Back to today, we are going right into the heart of the sports business to talk about sports marketing. It's virtual, it's live, but we want to hear from you. So please, I ask all the time, get your questions in. We did a session this morning, we had some great questions coming in. So please do get your questions in so we can be interactive, and we will get them to the speakers. There is also a small private meet and greet session immediately after this one, but you need to sign up for it because sometimes they get very full. In a minute, I'm going to introduce you to the speakers, but before that, you will have noticed that this is free. And that is 100% thanks to our sponsors and our partners, including Football Marketing Asia, Sports Singapore, and Sport Business, plus wonderful support from Mailman, Asia Sports Tech, and Pictureboard partners who you're going to meet in a minute. Finally, thank you for joining. Please do enjoy. Please learn. Please give me feedback. If you like what you see, great. But if you want to change anything, or if you think that we're missing out on anything, let me know. It's very easy to find me, jasper@branded.live. But then also don't forget to get those questions in. So on with the show. Today's session, I said, explore sports marketing. This morning, we heard from Football Marketing Asia. We heard from Mailman and Cell GP, and they talked about some wonderful insights into conversations required between the content owners and fans. We talked about the importance of data and driving value from engagement versus views, whilst touching on the metaverse. So the conversation continues this afternoon, and we're going to meet an old friend of mine in a second. We are going to see Unmish Parthasarathi. There he is.
Hello.
From Pictureboard. Very good to see you, Mish. Thank you very much. Sorry, Unmish. Thank you so much for joining the Sports Masters Academy. Now, before you introduce your two wonderful speakers, you are one of the best known faces in the Asia Pacific sports business and maybe beyond. So I'm going to ask you the question I ask a lot of people. How did you get to where you are today? And what do you tell your friends you do for a living?
Excellent. Okay, I was a failed journalist. Then I was a failed TV producer. Then I was a failed product manager. Then I was a failed strategist. Then I was a failed salesman. What basically helped me was building relationships with people, understanding that it's all about the fan, and making sure that you don't take yourself too seriously, but take the business seriously all the time. To my friends, I basically tell them that I work in sport, and they sort of do one of two things. They either just look at me quizzically as saying, "You poor soul," or they say, "Wow." And then in that case, I ask them, what's their favorite sport? And then away we go.
Fantastic. Well, away you go. I'm going to hand over. I'm going to disappear. I'll come back at the end and annoy you. But Unmish, thank you so much for doing the session. Enjoy.
No worries. Jasper, before you go, he's gone already. Jasper's done a great job on actually starting this whole academy for the sports industry. We need it because the industry is going through a massive change. It actually has been a great platform for breeding a lot of debate and discussions. It's my great pleasure to welcome Sheila from the NBA and Shuchi from the MPL Foundation. Hello to you from Singapore, to hello Hong Kong, and hello Bangalore, I believe, or was it Bombay? I've lost track.
Hi, Unmish. How are you?
Hi, Unmish.
Glad to be here.
Hi, Shuchi. Shuchi, you're in Bangalore or Bombay? I've lost track.
Actually, I'm in Delhi.
You're in Delhi. Okay, hard to keep track. Sheila, how are you keeping well? I see that I know you're keeping well because I can actually see a few bottles of alcohol behind you.
Yeah, I was told I
Is
couldn't use any virtual background, but I couldn't find a white background, so I guess I'm sitting in front of my bar.
Hey, marketing is all about engagement. You had me at hello. I don't really care what percentage it is. You just had me at hello, so that's not a problem. Shuchi, look, great to have you for the first time on the sort of on the branded platform. You okay, darling? Cool. We're all very happy going for theater. Yesterday was basketball. Our daughter used to be a Warriors fan. Talking about
What?
You were. Okay.
Why?
Okay, all right.
My question is, why were?
Because Glory Hunter and then Raptors. So she's now a Raptors fan.
Okay.
And
Still a fan.
So Glory Hunter became Raptors fan, and then the year before, her teacher was Canadian from Toronto. Boom, and then she's now a Raptors fan. And that's the end of that. So
Okay.
that's our little person, and she's off to theater class. Ta-da, bye.
I'll take it.
Cool. Right. We are here to talk about digital marketing and sport. When I was sort of posting on LinkedIn a few days ago, I sort of described them as two peas in a pod because they are really sort of, one feeds the other, very symbiotic, all that kind of stuff. But before we get into that, maybe Sheila, I can start with you. Tell us a bit about three things. The organization you work for, and what do you do for them? And what were you doing in the organization or the employer before the current one?
Before, okay.
Off you go.
All right. So I work for the NBA. That's short form for the National Basketball Association. I've been at the NBA now coming to 11 years. I look after marketing and communications based out of Hong Kong. We promote the NBA, everything from engaging our fans to new fans to working with our partners on how best to promote the NBA and all that good stuff, including digital and social. And before this, I was actually working in Singapore at a PR agency, but my previous job was also in sports marketing, working with many different brands, of which the NBA was one of it. And that's kind of how I ended up here.
Oh, very interesting. Which PR agency was this?
It's been sold now, but it was called Full Foot PR at the time.
Yeah. Full Foot PR, of course. Yes. Very famous name. I think you guys are pioneers, weren't you? I mean, it was a very dedicated.
Before sports
or
was
very
a thing.
sport heavy. Yeah.
Was a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Early days. Yeah.
Correct. Awesome. Excellent. Well, great to have you. Thanks for your time. And if ever you need to clear out the bar, I'm happy to pay courier charges. That's not a problem at all. Shuchi, good afternoon. I hope you've had lunch, because lunch in India is usually a bit late. How are you? Tell us more about, as Sheila was saying, what are you doing now? What's the organization? What are you doing with them? And kind of way before that.
Well, so I work with Mobile Premier League, which is an online gaming platform in India. It's been 3 years since the startup was founded. I have recently joined them. Not recently, but it's been a year actually. And I take care of brand marketing for MPL, slowly getting into user acquisition and, the entire lifestyle and the timeline of users on our platform. We have about 90 games. And then, we're also into real money gaming and fantasy sport. But before this, I was with an IPL franchise, a cricket franchise in India, which is called Rajasthan Royals. And I was there for about 2 years, a little over that. At that time, I was taking care of their sponsorship and partnerships and basically everything in Stadia.
Okay, fascinating. So you've got the MPL, which is like a gaming platform, hyper casual kind of gaming, entirely digital business. You got the NBA, which historically and at its DNA is an entirely analog business. It's on ground playing, and then I think what we're trying to do is sort of try and see, and one is gaming and one is sport. That's another way of perhaps looking at it, right? But then the two are sort of getting intertwined. Sheila, I'll probably start with you. When it comes to when you say, as Jasper was saying to me, you meet a friend. Oh, I look after digital marketing in sport. Um, Talk to us through what is a typical day, if there's a typical day, or talk us through the cadence over the course of 12 months of what your role is like. What are the sort of 3, 4, 5 different things that you are sort of charged with impacting and amplifying?
Sure. So a typical day. So since I look after both marketing and communications, there really isn't a typical day. It really depends what's the latest on the docket for the day or at that particular period of time. So I guess, digital marketing, as everyone knows, has never been more important than it is now, and it will continue to be. And where digital marketing used to be able to amplify a lot of things you used to do on the ground, or like you said, analog business, you would amplify those on digital. At more and more so now, it's kind of leading at the forefront. It kind of comes first. It's kind of what are you doing to amplify, what are you doing digitally, and how is the off-ground activity going to help with the digital activity? And so I think we've kind of seen that shift, particularly with the pandemic. And so, a typical day could be anything from ensuring that our games are promoted the right way. We have a whole bunch of social media channels that are localized into languages for a particular market that we have to ensure are putting out content that is relevant to and engaging for our audience in that particular market. So I don't know if I mentioned this at the front, but so we look after Asia. So Asia meaning sort of like the APAC region, but excluding Greater China, because we have our colleagues in the China office that do the mainland. And so in addition to social, a lot of it is also working with our partners who broadcast our games, ensuring that we are helping them market our games, market our players, market the brand effectively on their own platforms. And then the third piece is really the communications piece, where ensuring, being the brand ambassador, we're kind of telling the stories that we want out there that kind of establish us as experts, leaders in the space. We are often known as pioneers in the tech space when it comes to sports technology, and it's a very high bar. So just ensuring that everything we do is of that caliber. So I wouldn't say there's any typical day, but in a nutshell, these are just some of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis.
Fascinating. I'm gonna come back to this because I think there's a distinction between basketball, NBA, and then franchise. And then you're servicing all three in many ways as the regional sort of HQ for the sport and for the property. But let me come back to that. Shuchi, maybe I can sort of take you back to your previous innings at the Rajasthan Royals, and perhaps ask you the same question in terms of what does digital marketing mean? Obviously, keeping in mind your season was quite much like the NFL. It was like a 2.5, 3 month season, maybe 3 or 4 if you take a sort of before and after piece, and then rest of the 8 months it was a bit dormant. Talk us through what was it like pre-tournament, in tournament, post-tournament. That's probably a great way of sort of time shifting it.
Yeah. So, well, I joined RR in 2019, and that was a time when they're just come back, right? So it was a fresh team, and we were literally like, it was a very small digital team, right? And yeah, starting we had challenges, but then we sat across and we discussed about how we need to go where the fan is, and this is the time RR needs to bring its fans together, because right after we came in, we were really like at the lowest point ever, right? All the other teams are way far ahead, especially Mumbai Indians and RCB. So I think it took us a while to figure out the exact strategy. And, I'm very proud to say that the entire social media, the entire digital gamut actually worked really well. We started focusing on where the fans are. First point of communication was, hey, we're back. Then the second point of communication was that we're back here in Jaipur. We were also playing in Jaipur after a very, very long time, and we wanted people to come see us in the stadiums. So I think we spent a good 4, 5, 6 months just telling everybody that we're back and we want you back, and we're working really hard to get you on our side. So the first 6 months were a little challenging, and then I think the biggest factor was that we had some really cool players, marquee players on our team, which were great. on social media, and we've created content around them. We basically try to get them as close to a fan in Jaipur. You know, behind the scenes or at training, we opened up training as well, so they could actually come and see these people. It was very, very funny because they knew all the three English players we had. Like, come on, they're talking about Jofra Archer and they're talking about Joes Butler and Ben Stokes, which is amazing. And then after that, like right before when the IPL started, we got into some really great digital partnerships, and we started creating content with those guys. We started a lot of banter and those kind of like activities with the other teams. It was just to create the noise, and we came out with Pink. That was our biggest um, event that year, when RR's jersey color changed to pink. It was also, I think, to get the fans and get the people of Jaipur more connected to us, because it's the pink city. And then we had done a couple of events for breast cancer awareness and things like that. So I think going pink, getting the people to the stadium, watching us, and then slowly and steadily building our digital media following was how we went about it. But then after that, I think we had truckloads of content to keep us going for the next 3-4 months about the different players. And we started taking care of women's grassroots football, sorry, cricket. So that was an interesting part, because then we started getting content from there. We worked with the
Great.
RCA together. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm taking away from here, I think, which is very, very important, is one, we go to the fan rather than get the fan to come to us. Which, Sheila, you were at the NBA, I was at ESPN Star and Fox. It's more around a point of view. Come to my backyard and let's have a party, as opposed to the humility which we have to sort of bring to sort of say, let's go to the fan. And that's the first great takeaway. The second is also the multiple channels and the channel partners. Like you said, it could be other franchises, it could be your own digital partners. Sheila mentioned your media and broadcast licensees, and how to sort of get the word out there, not just by off your own bat, but also the others. But the third thing, which I think you just about touched on towards the end, was sort of the association of the team color and pink, because Jaipur is called the Pink City because of the sandstone architecture, and then the use of that into social impact themes and breast cancer, and surfacing the whole thing, which is it was quite a breakthrough piece, wasn't it? Could we sort of unpack that a little bit more? Like, what was it? Talk to us, if you can, about the fly on the wall view in that room of how the seed of an idea came through. How did you take it forward? Did you have misgivings? How did you sort of take it to market? And what was the feedback?
Actually, so we had, so how at the MPL you always have to have one social impact game per team, right? So the home teams have to do it. And breast cancer awareness was our cause. And so for that, we had turned pink. Just surprisingly, the people loved it. The sponsors were really happy, because at that time there were 3 other teams in blue. So they would always get a little finicky about it, saying Mumbai Indians is the same color, but the Samsung is right there, and it can show. But like, if suppose we have JK Lakshmi, for example, they're not very happy about it, because there's no differentiation. And that is what we wanted to start creating. I think innovating and differentiating ourselves from like the other franchise was the key focus that year. So we started with the jersey, and people loved it. Yes, the players were a little, they didn't take it very, very sportingly,
Reticent,
right in
a
the
bit reticent, maybe.
right at the start, because we had like yellow logos and things like that on our pink jersey, and it was not just a splash of pink; it was pure pink, right? So, but everyone came together, and eventually, when we had our first game in Jaipur, the stadium was pink, and that's what we wanted. So I think we had achieved that, and we were, starting that point, we really started differentiating ourselves from the other teams.
No, it's fascinating because history. Cricket has been amongst the sports which has really taken on breast cancer. From the Jane McGrath Foundation to the Ruth Strauss Foundation to what the Rajasthan Royals has done. Sheila, can I just come to you in terms of there was definitely been a sense the last 2-3 years, even before COVID, but perhaps COVID sort of expedited that. I want to talk more about, social impact associating with social campaigns for upliftment. Historically, it may have been a tick box, a bit like digital marketing was a decade ago, but it's increasingly become a part of a campaign, a part of a brand in a very authentic way, without it being sort of patronizing. Two questions, I guess. Was generally, as a sports marketing professional, what's your view? And then secondly, are there any initiatives at a franchise or a league level that you might be able to cite for us?
Yeah, so we call it social justice. So it is a big movement for us, I think, with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and then when COVID hit, it's just kind of part of our DNA. Yeah, even before that, we have a platform called NBA Cares, where it's our way of giving back to the communities that we operate in. So whether it's working with NGOs or other similar types of local organizations, to sort of give back to the communities that we operate in. So whether, if we are going to be doing business in these markets, I think it's kind of only fair that, we try to leave some kind of legacy behind, where the local communities benefit from it. And then just, over the last year, or I guess since COVID, we've also started an NBA Foundation, which sort of has various programs and funding for different types of initiatives, different types of causes, and yeah, I think it's just part of our DNA, honestly speaking.
And if I could sort of double click that a little bit more, Sheila, in terms of do you see any variation between Asia and the US, or within Asia, the notion of you use a particular phrase, social something?
Social justice.
So notion of social justice, do they vary between, say, Philippines and India, Japan, or Australia, for example?
Yeah, I would say there's social justice, and then there's also sort of our NBA Cares platform, because NBA Cares platform differs market to market. In the Philippines, it could be something topical in the Philippines, could be something very different in Indonesia. Natural disasters in Southeast Asia is kind of a common occurrence, unfortunately, just given where they're situated. And so the things that are topical and where the local communities need help on is going to be very different from what is topical and is going on in the US. And it just comes back down to kind of understanding your community, understanding your local audience, understanding what would benefit them the most. So it's not a one size fits all, but we really try and work with the local communities to sort of make it relevant for them.
That's a great answer. Let's kind of try and sort of dig deeper a little bit on the how, right? Let's talk about, let's pick three things, for example. Let's just say hashtags. How do you deal with hashtags? Let's say choice of platform. Give me your top three in order of descending priority and why. And give me your choice of asset between video, live video, on-demand video, and infographics with image.
My question back to you would be, which market?
Okay, great. No, that's great. No, that's perfect. Okay, let me just look at a beautiful segue. Since the NBA this morning announced that two of their franchises are going to go to Japan, why don't you share the news with our audience about what the latest announcements of the Rakuten partnership in Japan, and then let's just talk about hashtag, choice of platform, choice of asset for the tour of those two franchises. Over to you. What a beautiful segue.
So thanks for that. Earlier this morning, we actually announced that we are with Rakuten. We'll be bringing two games to Japan, and specifically with two teams, the Washington Wizards and the Golden State Warriors, who are two very, very popular teams. And just in terms of how we announced it in today's world, it was a hybrid press conference. And so we had some people that were on the ground in Japan, but a lot of our executives joined virtually. I guess that's the word now. In terms of platform in Japan, Twitter is by far kind of the most popular platform, social media platform that people use, just in terms of getting their news and sort of getting the news. So we worked quite closely with Twitter. to sort of amplify our news out there. But that being said, there's also the tried and tested methods of communications, press releases, hashtags. We used NBA Japan games, very easy. We didn't want to make it too complicated. The teams were very excited, so we made sure that we had messages, from players, from the team owners, talking about how excited they are to come. Sorry, what was the last part of your question? I don't know if I answered
No,
it.
I think you've covered it all. Video, hashtags, the whole thing. There you go, Shuchi.
More
No
to come,
pressure
more to come.
I'm sure. No,
Since
no
you can
pressure for you, Shuchi.
travel now. Tickets go on sale in April.
Excellent. So any rates for mates? You saw our 12-year-old who's a Raptors fan, but I think I can persuade her to come to Tokyo for a weekend. So I might tap you up on that for a daddy and daughter weekend. It's
Okay. We'll take that offline.
good fun. We'll take it offline, definitely. Shuchi, again, that was a great answer by Sheila, but perhaps I'll leave it to you whether you want to talk about football and whether you want to take a footballing example. Or you want to take an example with the foundation, with the MPL Foundation, or go back to RR. But talk us through, sort of what is the grammar of digital marketing? Hashtags to my mind is the grammar of digital marketing. Talking about the asset makes, and talk to us about platforms like the Twitter in Japan, and where do you go with this?
Well, it's easier for me to talk about RR because we do a lot of things across. Obviously, our key audience is not from Rajasthan, surprisingly. It's from across also. So, and we are deep in Northeast as well. Hashtag, yes, of course. I mean, it's the biggest one we've had since 2008. It was Halla Bol, which is something we use in, it's something we use everywhere for our communications and branding and everything else.
And for our non-Hindi audiences, Halla Bol translates as "give us a shout."
Yeah, give us a shout.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So that's our major one. Also, we chose we chose Halla Bol because it's in the local language from Rajasthan, right? So it's our biggest tagline everywhere across platforms. Interestingly, RR's audience, I mean, we have great amount of following on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter we use for updates and banter and because it's a more open platform and we can really engage with the audience, and it's really busy, which we like. So Twitter is number one, and then on Instagram we have a great content team, which is creating this great content across, which can be reels, which can be player interviews, ask me anything kind of stuff. There are a lot of lives that we do. So we have like this obviously RR had this strategy, a plan of what kind of content goes on which days, and then we're very particular about, like, if you have asked me anything, then they have to be on a particular day, particular time. Which platform are we using? Some players like Sanju Samsung, extremely popular, so we would want to have him on both. But Ben Stokes is more niche. It's a little more manageable with people going all out because you have Ben Stokes. So maybe have him on Instagram. So I think Instagram and Twitter are really popular, and because it's a team, it works very differently. But for MPL, we really majorly stick to play MPL, which is on Instagram. It's more about your visual content, your little short form videos on how do you play a game, what are the fantasy tips that you have. So we have a lot of like different segments on what we post on Instagram, and we actually use YouTube a lot also, because there are tutorials and other things on games, and making fantasy teams and things like that. So YouTube and Instagram for MPL.
So what I'm hearing is Twitter is more chat and perhaps imagery. Instagram is far more video, short form, live, as the case might be. What I'm also hearing is Rajasthan Royals, which is a franchise of the largest cricket league in the world, is more on engagement and say come to the stadium. Whereas for MPL, which is a casual, hyper casual gaming platform, it's not just entertainment and information; it's information and education as well. We're trying to educate people into a new way of, I guess, behavior, interaction, kind of stuff as well. So okay, that's great. Now, Sheila, we have a question from the audience, and thank you very much for sending it all. This is by Isaac Dowell. And Isaac's talking about, he's obviously a basketball fan because he's saying, question for Sheila on the NBA Asia, Australia, and the NBL fan engagement, which is the National Basketball League, which is the domestic league in Australia. There are a couple of Chinese players that have a huge social following. Do you have any crossover with these players? Shuchi, for example, mentioned how there'd be banter between different franchises in the Indian Cricket League. So I guess two questions perhaps to come out of this. One, how do you use, what are the sort of playbooks or use cases of using players to amplify a fixture and or a league? And then a separate question altogether is really about Chinese digital marketing and social media is so different, distinct, and large. And how do you sort of marry them, or do you just keep them as two separate worlds sitting next to each other?
I guess I can go first. So we do know the NBL very well. We speak to them on a regular basis. And, we have had players that have come from the NBL. So, I can name, Josh Giddey. He used to play for the Adelaide 36ers. He now plays for OKC. So, there is in that, what we would do is just make sure that when we are highlighting certain plays by Josh Giddey, we also mentioned that, he kind of used to play in the NBL and things like that. So definitely a lot of cross promotion because we do have a pretty big fan base in Australia. A lot of them are fans and follow the NBL, and vice versa. We have a lot of NBL fans, obviously, that are NBA fans. So yeah, definitely, we do a lot of cross promotion. And then in addition, on the Adelaide 36ers, we actually have a junior NBA, which is our league's global youth development program. We have Kai Soto, who actually is a graduate of our junior NBA program and now plays in the NBL.
Nice.
So definitely a lot of crossover. Yeah.
Nice. And could you talk more about sort of, in the digital world, there's almost the Anglophonic digital world, and then there's the Sinophonic digital world with China, different platforms, different kind of asset types, different kinds of storytelling. Talk us through, and I think the NBA is amongst, to my mind, it probably would be the leading or the dominant sort of football, the dominant sports federation brand, which almost walks on two legs in terms of the, very dedicated to the Chinese digital marketing piece as opposed to the non-Chinese platforms. Is that something that you're involved with, or is that something really taken care of by the guys in Beijing and Shanghai?
That's really taken care of by, and as you mentioned, I mean, what I would say is because of exactly what you said, we have a separate team that works specifically on that market because it is unique. They have their own platforms, and it requires kind of a dedicated team that understands that market.
Got it. Now, cool. Shuchi, I'll probably come to you then. I mean, the Rajasthan Royals, to my mind, of the 8, now 10 IPL franchises, is perhaps the one which is from very early on tried to almost have a brand which grows in concentric circles. So there's the city of Jaipur in Rajasthan. Then there's all of India, as you said, the Northeast, which is, 4,000 kilometers away. But they also have an academy in London, and the shareholders are British, and they definitely have a far bigger resonance, I must admit. I'm a Rajasthan Royals fan, and they have a far bigger sort of, very cool. It's a very cool brand. It's a brand that travels without losing sight of the fact that they're part of a very historical city. So talk me through, when you're engaging with somebody who is not a Gen Z, as opposed to somebody and is abroad, as opposed to somebody is a Gen Z and in Jaipur or India in that same time zone. How do you sort of bifurcate and how do you sort of toss that salad?
Okay, so with RR, our biggest assets are actually the three, English players that we had: Joss Butler, Jofra Archer, Ben Stokes, and we've invested in growing grassroots in England from, I think it's been like 5 years now. It's been a long time. We have our coaches there, we have academies there, which is only growing. The resonance is obviously that the owners of the team are also based out of London, and there's a lot of cricketing activity which happens over there with those guys that are based out of the London office and Dalim Chalcott, which is the parent company. I think we've just tapped on the right, kind of structure, because we really wanted to have academies, global academies across, and we started with England. Then we got one in Guwahati, which is the Northeast, and then we have one which, 2 years ago, I had the launch with Shane Warne in Dubai. So we've done a
Wow.
bunch of those, yes, and the entire idea was to, where the gaps are, and what kind of people. First, we started with what kind of Marwari people, like the people from Rajasthan, are located elsewhere. First we targeted those, because it's easy to sell them the story of their own land and things like that, their soil, their team. Which is why Northeast also happened. Guwahati, there are a lot of like people who are actually from Rajasthan, based out of Guwahati, and I think it was just like a really good connect, because we've had a really big foundation in the UK as well, and I think we work together with 4 to 5 coaches over there. So it's been very interesting for all of us. I think it came top down. There was an interest of doing something in England, taking this back there, making it more global. In terms of merchandise too, we were making good revenue, good sales over there with respect to merchandise. It was a little difficult in Dubai because when we launched the academy, the next day some kids came wearing Dhoni t-shirts, which is of course IPL was happening at that time. But I think it's been a slow and steady shift, and something that we're enjoying a lot. RR now also has a team in the Caribbean Premier League, so absolute plans of going global.
Okay, and then let's talk about the MPL Foundation as well, right? Because the MPL also
Yeah,
began very much India focused, and then as we were discussing off air before we came on, Jasper was talking about Joe, who sort of leads the charge amongst a bunch of other guys out of Jakarta
yeah.
and Singapore. So Indonesia is a big market for you, and then
Mhm.
at least the last time I spoke to some of Naman and those guys, they were talking about the US as well. So talk
Yeah,
us through. You've almost been through the journey with Rajasthan Royals across, say,
yeah.
two different countries or two different parts of a large country, and then now you're going into India, Indonesia, the US. Hardly any crossover outwardly. Are there any crossovers, or do you fundamentally treat them as three different and distinct markets, like
Um,
Sheila would do for China, Japan, Philippines, for example?
Yeah, very different markets. All of them, they have their own teams. They have their own GMs leading those teams. Singapore is allowed to work as a separate entity. I mean, under MPL, it is MPL, but they have the entire freedom of working how they want to work because they understand the market better. It's a different structure. Same thing with Indonesia. There's a separate team there. They actually all of these guys. We just actually acquired a game duel franchise in Germany. So now we're going to be in Germany as well. So treating all of these countries as independent startups, so that we can give them more freedom to grow and to actually pave their own way.
Fantastic. Sheila, I want to come back to you. Two questions, really. One, you've been with the NBA during a decade of phenomenal growth in terms of geographical expanse, right? I mean, Philippines, of course, but the scale of the growth was phenomenal in the last decade. Japan was a very different kind of entry, and the other parts, whether it's India, a very different kind of play. Talk us a little bit more around if you go into a market for growth, as opposed to if you go into a market for commercial revenue. How
Mhm.
might the digital marketing differ, and does it have to differ, or one big, or two become one over time?
I think, if you're going into a market that is kind of still in a growth stage, sort of, kind of not there with the sort of the numbers in terms of fans for us to monetize, it really is about building that fan base from bottoms up. And so that might involve, sort of grassroots activities. Marketing might be sort of a little bit more traditional, complementing the grassroots activities that we have. And then on digital, it really is about showcasing maybe not our full games, but maybe sort of why the NBA is exciting and why
Mm.
you should be a fan. As opposed to, I guess, a more developed market where fans are very educated. They kind of already know who the league is. And for them, it could be really the way to engage them is just really a lot more information about stats, games, highlights, And that is sort of like the right way to engage with them. Depending on the market, if digital or in some markets, Facebook is more popular than Instagram, then we focus on Facebook. In other markets where Instagram is kind of like the number one platform, then we sort of curate our content to ensure that it kind of, fits that audience. But yeah, definitely different for the market depending on where the level of fandom is.
Yeah, no, you talk about fandom. I think it's very interesting. The two frameworks that we use at Pictureboard Partners often to sort of help clients and partners structure their thoughts. One is the 3 R's, not the 2 R's, Shuchi, the 3 R's: relevance, reach, revenue. So Sheila, to your point about relevance, why should you care about basketball and then care about the NBA and then care about the franchises? Once you're familiar, awareness and familiarity leads to awareness. Awareness leads to engagement. So you go the relevance, reach, and the revenue sort of ladder, as it were. And the other, you mentioned about a fandom. We tend to sort of look at it as the fanatics, guys like me who are very sad, know everything about everything in sport. Then there are fans who use it very much in terms of, a very large, significant social cement. And then followers who probably will look at it more in terms of, okay, everybody's going, it's the playoffs, or it's a Super Bowl, or it's a World Cup final, I'll sort of tag along. So it's no different for them than a film premiere, for example. But it's an entertainment genre, so we go from there. Shuchi, I'll throw to you for 30 seconds, and then we're going to get Jasper back in to join us.
Hi. Yeah. So, well, the relevance bit, I spoke about it. It's where the people are, and we really want to touch that chord with them. The emotional connect is what we look for. With respect to MPL, we're literally targeting all age groups. It's an online platform, right? So we want everyone to come and play. I think that's our single motto. The objective is very simple, that you come to our platform and play games. Yes, we don't want you to be addicted to it, but like we want you to come and play our games, and it should be your number one choice of platforms. So yeah, they're two very different parts of how things were at RR versus how things are with MPL. That is why the MPL Sports Foundation is also now in this place where we're trying to really figure out how do we change perspective, number one, of people in terms of who are playing games versus how do we still get the older generation to come and play games. So we kind of somewhere lose that relevance bit, which we try to fill the gaps with. It's the X and the Z. Sometimes we're really missing out the Y. So we're working really hard towards finding that bit out. Yeah, with RR, it's pretty straightforward now. Great players there, great team, very popular, 10 teams now. So the season's upcoming. It's very, very different.
It's a bit different. Excellent.
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much. This has been great fun. As is evident, I think we could have gone on for quite a while, but we have to welcome back Jasper. Hello, Jasper. How are you?
Hello. That was great. I was really enjoying listening in. We do have another question from the World Wide Web, and this is from Usha Ganasan. And if I've pronounced your name wrong, you may call me Donut. It's easy to keep the audience engaged when the team is performing really well, but when the team is not so hot, I've never, none of my teams. When the team is not so hot, how do you manage that when the energy levels go down? Do you have a strategy to keep the fans engaged, entertained, or motivated? Great question. Why don't we ask Sheila first?
We have 30 teams. So there are definitely going to be teams that are playing well and teams that are not playing well.
What about advice? Advice that you've seen from teams who are struggling?
Advice for teams that are struggling. I think you kind of need to be creative with the type of content that you feed to your audience, to your fans. So a lot of times, let's say, for example, a team is not playing well, but they've got a local player, right, for that particular market, whether it's Australia, Philippines, Japan, pick your market. There are fans there that don't care that the teams are not doing well, as long as they know how their local player is doing. And so maybe we focus on that. That could be funny moments off the court. Maybe a team is known for their antics or their dance moves. Like, I don't want, if I call the teams are doing well, but there are some teams that do have this funny dance moves that they do before they tip off a game. So, maybe those are the things that we highlight. I think you guys have to be creative. Maybe it's not all about the game.
I think we should all have dance moves.
You do have dance moves, Jasper. You're just modest. That's all.
Well, so my final question to you all, and Unmish, I'm going to come to you last, but Shuchi, what is now we love asking these questions to everyone. So what for MPL, what's really exciting for you, whether it's now or what's up next? What's really exciting in your world?
I think what's really exciting is earlier I was with a franchise, I've seen that side, but this is a startup. It's crazy. A lot of young people, lots of energy. Sometimes, I really miss New York, but then I come back to office and I'm like, this is as crazy as it can get. We have, we're expanding. We are actually, targeting different countries and entering different geographies, which is interesting. But at the same time, we're also very, very deeply engraved in the IPL circuit. So it's nice to be a sponsor now and see things from this side. At the IPL is coming up, and I'm going to be managing the entire project. So I think it's very exciting from that front. New learnings coming.
So you've gone poacher turned gamekeeper. Sheila, what is exciting for you right now, other than your bar?
Everyone's invited to my bar. What's exciting now, I think, the whole, we haven't even talked about this, but the whole metaverse and the opportunity digital marketing brings for us with that. We're still trying to figure that piece out. I won't say we have it all figured out, but, I think trying to figure the whole metaverse, NFT, how a sports league actually fits into that space, how we use it not just from a business perspective or a commercial perspective, but how do we use it from a marketing perspective, and how do we sort of use that to get more fans in? I think that's probably like one of the biggest things that we're trying to figure out right now.
Two great answers. Unmish, no pressure on the final word. What is exciting in Mish Matters?
Mish Matters. So look, at Pictureboard Partners, we work across 4 sectors: gaming, education, media, and sport, what we call the GEM sectors. I think the interplay across all 4 is fascinating now. As Sheila said, you have to educate audiences for them to come along. That education would not necessarily be sporting based. It could be through an MPL gaming platform. At the same time, it's a media business because the monetization is through media principles. And at the same time, the tribalism that is part of sport is what gets people associated. So I think is those 4 things coming together because of technology and economics and all that kind of stuff, which is really exciting. So yeah, I think it's much more the sort of interplay of the GEM sectors, which is keeping me very, very excited.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Now, anyone who's watching this, you have the opportunity to meet the speakers backstage in the virtual rooms. You go back to the agenda, click on the session, and you should be magicked in there. But thank you again, Shuchi, Sheila, and Unmish for joining I said Music Managers Academy. I always say joining the Sports Managers Academy today. And thank you so much. For everyone else watching, the Gaming Masters Academy comes up next on the 22nd. That's next Tuesday, followed by the Sports Masters Academy again. Data matters. We're making data cool again on the 24th. But thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you in the Meet the Speakers room.